In the dim light of a starlit market on the fringe of the galaxy, a tiny figure fluttered weakly against the smooth, cool surface of her glass prison. Her wings, iridescent and delicate, shimmered with each futile beat, reflecting the neon glows of the stalls around her. The creature, no larger than a human's thumb, was an exotic beauty from a distant star, her features a rare blend of ethereal grace trapped in an all-too-physical cage. Onlookers passed by, their faces a mix of fascination and indifference. Children pressed their noses against the glass, fogging it up with their breath, while adults haggled over prices, treating her as just another commodity in this bustling interstellar bazaar. Amidst the noise and casual cruelty, she had lost her name along with her freedom. Here, she was merely Item 42B. Her world had shrunk to a few cubic feet of space, her sky nothing more than the top of her enclosure, her moon the artificial light that flickered above. Her captor, a grizzled trader with eyes as cold as the moons of Jorvok, touted her origins to lure more spectators. Behold, the last of the Zephyrian sprites. A beauty from the clouds of Zephyr, where the skies bloom with colors unseen by the dull eyes of the mundane worlds. Each word was a dagger, reminders of her lost home. Zephyr, a planet of vast skies and vibrant storms, where she had danced among the lightning and sung with the wind. Now, her voice was silent, her dance reduced to a desperate fluttering. As the day waned, the crowd thinned, and the lights of the stalls dimmed, casting long shadows across the aisles. It was then that he appeared, an unassuming figure, his presence almost as muted as his plain clothes. The man stopped before her display, his eyes not reflecting the usual curiosity or greed, but something else, something deeper. He watched her for a long while, his gaze steady and gentle. Unlike the others, he made no move to tap the glass or startle her. He simply observed, his face etched with a quiet sadness. After what felt like an eternity in his quiet company, he finally spoke, not to the trader but to her, his voice barely a whisper amidst the cacophony of closing stalls. "I see you, little one. Not as a spectacle, but as a fellow being, ensnared far from home." His words, filled with empathy and understanding, washed over her like a warm breeze. She paused her fluttering, her eyes locking with his. In that moment, a silent vow seemed to pass between them, a promise unspoken yet as palpable as the electric storms of Zephyr. The man turned to the trader, his voice firm. "I'd like to make an offer for her freedom." The trader scoffed, his gaze appraising the man before him. "Freedom? She's far more valuable than you might think. What could you possibly offer that matches her worth?" The man's reply was simple, yet it carried a weight that seemed to hush the surrounding noise. "Everything I have." As the negotiations began, the sprite watched, her heart a tempest of hope and fear. The thought of freedom was overwhelming, yet terrifying. What world awaited her beyond the glass? Could this stranger, who saw her not as an object but as a creature of spirit and storm, truly restore what had been lost? The man's determination was palpable, his negotiation relentless. As they talked, the trader's resistance waned, his greed eventually outweighed by the promise of a substantial gain. With a curt nod, he agreed to the terms. The glass door of her cage swung open, and for the first time in what seemed like forever, the sprite felt the touch of unfiltered air. The man extended his hand, not as a captor, but as a rescuer. Tentatively, she stepped onto his palm, her body trembling with a mixture of excitement and fear. As they walked away from the stall, the lights of the market fading behind them, the sprite looked up at the human who had seen her plight and responded not with desire, but with compassion. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of her journey back to the skies. The night was deep and silent as they left the clamor of the market behind. Under the vast canopy of stars, the sprite felt an unfamiliar chill, a stark contrast to the warm currents of Zephyr. She huddled against the human's warmth, her tiny form barely perceptible on his broad palm. He wrapped a soft piece of cloth around her, shielding her from the cold that she had never known in her aerial home. The man, named Eli, spoke softly to her as they ventured into the quieter parts of the city. "We need to get you someplace safe, where you can rest and regain your strength." His voice was a soothing balm, and despite her fears, the sprite found a modicum of comfort in his presence. As they walked, the lights of the city blurred into a stream of colors, reflecting the diverse life forms that thrived in this cosmopolitan hub of the galaxy. Eli navigated through shadowy alleys and less trodden paths, a precaution to avoid prying eyes and potential threats. He knew too well the value others placed on a creature like the sprite and the lengths to which they would go to possess such rarity. They arrived at a humble abode, nestled between the high rises that scratched the night sky. Inside, the space was warm and filled with objects from dozens of worlds, books, artifacts, and instruments that spoke of a life dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge and understanding across the cosmos. Eli set her down on a window ledge padded with a soft cushion. "This is my home. You'll be safe here," he assured her, his eyes scanning her delicate form for any signs of distress. In the following days, the sprite learned much about her rescuer. Eli was a scholar of xenobiology, the study of life forms from across the universe. His work aimed to understand and preserve the uniqueness of each species, advocating against the interstellar trade that treated sentient beings as merchandise. The sprite also learned of the sacrifice Eli had made for her freedom. The sum he had paid was exorbitant, meant for his research endeavors. But his decision was firm, rooted in a belief that every creature deserved a life free from bonds, no matter the cost. As she regained her strength, the walls of the apartment became less of a shelter and more of a cage. The sprite's heart ached for the open skies, for the freedom to fly beyond the confines of any enclosure. She would often flutter to the window, gazing longingly at the freedom just beyond the glass. Observing her growing restlessness, Eli initiated a new plan. "I'm working on a way to get you back to Zephyr," he revealed one evening as he adjusted a complex device that sprawled across his workspace. "It's not just about sending you back, it's about ensuring you can thrive there once again, without the threat of being captured." His project involved collaborating with an underground network of activists dedicated to the repatriation of displaced species. Together, they developed a strategy that included stealth technology to avoid detection and legal maneuvers to secure her safety upon return. Amidst these preparations, the bond between Eli and the sprite deepened. She learned to communicate with him through a series of chirps and gestures, a language of her own that he seemed to understand intuitively. In return, Eli shared stories of his travels, his voice painting pictures of worlds she could only dream of. One night, as they looked out at the starry expanse, Eli pointed to a distant speck that glowed slightly blue. "There, that's Zephyr. It's beautiful, isn't it? Soon, you'll see it not just as a speck but as your home once again." The sprite vibrated her wings in response, a sign of joy mixed with the melancholy of leaving the human who had become her unexpected ally in a galaxy that often felt too vast and indifferent. Her heart was torn between the call of home and the bond she had formed with Eli, a testament to the complex web of emotions she now navigated. As the day of her departure drew near, the weight of their impending separation grew heavier. Eli worked tirelessly, his actions driven by a mission that was no longer just about a rescue but about righting a wrong in the only way he knew how. Meanwhile, the sprite watched him, her spirit intertwined with the hope and heartache of what was to come. As the departure day approached, the atmosphere in Eli's apartment shifted from a place of recovery to a staging ground for what would be a complex and perilous mission. They had one chance to get it right, for the route back to Zephyr was fraught with hazards, from space pirates to the vigilant patrols of corporate conglomerates who sought to monopolize the capture and trade of exotic species. Eli sat before a sprawl of holographic maps and navigational charts that flickered in the dim light. The routes were color-coded, tracing potential safe passages through less monitored sectors and utilizing gravitational slingshots around celestial bodies to speed their travel. "We'll need to be clever and quick," Eli murmured, mostly to himself, as he plotted the course that would carry the sprite home. Meanwhile, the sprite, whom Eli had begun to call Lisa, a name she seemed to recognize and respond to, practiced maneuvering within the confines of the apartment, strengthening her wings for the long flight ahead. Occasionally, she perched on Eli's shoulder, watching the data streams with a keen eye, as if understanding their gravity. The night before they were to leave, Eli introduced Lisa to the vessel that would carry them to Zephyr. It was a sleek, compact ship, designed for speed and stealth, its surfaces treated with a photon-absorptive coating to minimize detection. The Nightingale, Eli called it, an homage to a creature from Earth known for its beautiful and melodic song, much like the soft chirps Lisa emitted when content. Inside the Nightingale, Eli showed Lisa the special module he had designed for her. It was a miniature habitat, equipped with conditions to simulate the atmospheric currents of Zephyr, allowing her to feel at home even as they traveled through the cold vacuum of space. We'll be jumping through hyperspace for this. It's going to be disorienting, but this capsule will keep you safe and comfortable, Eli explained, his voice a mixture of excitement and underlying concern. As they embarked on their journey, the initial leap through hyperspace was indeed jarring. Lisa, secured in her module, felt a momentary sensation of being stretched and compressed all at once, a feeling alien even to a creature of the air like herself. When the ship stabilized, and the stars outside resumed their normal appearance, she fluttered to the edge of her habitat, her small face pressed against the glass, gazing out at the passing cosmos. The trip was not without its dangers. Twice they had to reroute to avoid the patrols of the Galactic Trade Authority, and once they narrowly escaped a band of pirates by ducking into an asteroid field, the rocky bodies providing just enough cover to lose their pursuers. Throughout these trials, Lisa watched Eli maneuver with a calm determination, his hands steady at the controls, his eyes always scanning for the next threat or opportunity. In these moments, Lisa saw not just her rescuer, but a companion, one who had sacrificed much to see her safely home. As Zephyr finally came into view, its vast, swirling storms and colorful skies appearing like a painting on the dark canvas of space, Lisa felt a surge of emotions. Joy at the sight of her home, sorrow at the thought of leaving Eli, and a deep, resonant fear of what might await her upon her return. Had her people survived the trade raids? Would they accept her back after so long? Eli sensed her trepidation, placing a hand gently against her habitat. You're not just going back, Lisa. You're going home to make a difference. With what we've learned, we can start a movement to protect your kind. As the Nightingale descended into the atmosphere of Zephyr, Eli prepared for the final part of their plan. They would not only reintroduce Lisa but also deploy a series of protective satellites around the planet, designed to create a shield that would interfere with unauthorized transport beams, a safeguard against future captures. Lisa's heart fluttered with a mixture of anticipation and resolve. The upcoming reunion with her world was tinged with the bittersweet knowledge that her bond with Eli was drawing to a close. As they breached the clouds and the familiar winds of Zephyr caressed her face through the vents of her module, she knew that whatever the future held, the story of her and Eli would be whispered among the winds of her world for generations to come. As the Nightingale touched down on the soft, verdant meadows of Zephyr, the air was electrified with the storm's energy, a welcoming yet formidable greeting from her home planet. Lisa, within her specially designed habitat, fluttered eagerly as her gaze absorbed the sprawling vistas of her native world. The skies, a tapestry of swirling violets and blues, seemed to celebrate her return with a dazzling display of lightning and thunder, a symphony she felt deep within her bones. Eli worked quickly, unsealing the habitat to allow Lisa her first taste of Zephyrian air in what felt like millennia. She hesitated at the threshold, the memories of captivity shadowing her joy of freedom. With a gentle nudge, Eli encouraged her. "It's all right, Lisa. This is your world, your wind. Fly." With a tentative flutter, Lisa emerged, her wings catching the buoyant currents as if they had never forgotten the dance of the Zephyrian breezes. She rose, higher and higher, her form a mere speck against the vastness of her world. Below, Eli watched, his heart swelling with a mix of pride and impending loss. The reunion with her kin was nothing short of miraculous. Lisa's tribe, the Ariads, a nomadic group of sprites renowned for their weather manipulation abilities, welcomed her with a mixture of awe and reverence. They had thought her lost to the galactic trader's greed, a victim of the ever-growing expanse of the interstellar exotic markets. Lisa shared her tale, her voice a melody of chirps and whistles that carried on the wind. She spoke of captivity, of Eli, of Earth and its strange, solid grounds, and of her return. Her story, imbued with the pain of her experiences and the hope Eli had given her, stirred her tribe. Meanwhile, Eli began the work of setting up the protective satellites, his every move monitored by the curious and cautious eyes of the Ariads. Using a combination of human technology and Zephyrian magic, he worked alongside the sprites to create a shield that would cloak their planet in a protective barrier, rendering their airspace invisible to the scanners of the traders' ships. As the project neared completion, Eli's mind was consumed not only with the technicalities of his task but also with the looming goodbye he would soon have to face. Lisa, sensing his melancholy, joined him at the sight of the final satellite. "Eli, your spirit will always be a part of Zephyr now," she said, her voice a comforting whisper carried by the gentle gusts around them. "You've changed our fate." Eli looked at her, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "And you've changed mine, Lisa. I came here to bring you back, but you've shown me what it truly means to fight for something beyond oneself." Their final evening together was spent atop the highest peak of Zephyr, where the air was crisp and the view unobstructed. They watched the sunset, a spectacle of colors that seemed to paint the sky with the light of hope and new beginnings. As night fell, the stars twinkled into existence, each one a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the tiny, precious part they played in it. Eli handed Lisa a small device, a beacon she could use to contact him, should she ever need to. "You're not just a sprite, Lisa. You're a beacon of change. Use this and I'll be here, always just a call away." With a final, heartfelt chirp, Lisa thanked him. She flew around him, a dance of gratitude and farewell, then soared into the night sky, her silhouette part of the greater expanse of her world. Eli watched her disappear, feeling both a deep loss and a profound peace. He had set out to save a life but ended up helping an entire planet find its way back to autonomy. As the Nightingale lifted off from Zephyr, heading back to the space lanes that would take him home, Eli knew that while his adventure had ended, the story of Lisa, the sprite from Zephyr, was just beginning to inspire others across the stars. As Eli's ship, the Nightingale, receded into the star-studded void, the cosmos seemed to embrace him with open arms, whispering secrets of the universe he had yet to uncover. Back on Zephyr, Lisa's story, now interwoven with the lore of her people, inspired a newfound resilience against the threats from beyond their skies. Her experiences, shared through the oral traditions of the Ariads, spread like wildfire, igniting a series of revolutions throughout the neighboring systems against the intergalactic trade syndicates. Meanwhile, in the solitude of space, Eli pondered his next move. The universe was vast, and his role in it had just expanded. The plight of sentient beings, treated as mere commodities, was a widespread malaise that required more than just sporadic interventions. With Lisa's safe return and the successful deployment of the protective satellites, Eli felt a surge of motivation to replicate this sanctuary model on other endangered worlds. His thoughts were interrupted by an urgent communique from an encrypted channel, a rare occurrence that signaled either great trouble or vital information. The message was from a collective of activists who had heard of his work on Zephyr. They were organizing a covert conference on the station of Alcyone, a neutral ground frequented by scholars, freethinkers, and rebels alike. Eli set his course for Alcyone, curious and cautiously optimistic. Upon arrival, he navigated through the labyrinthine corridors of the station, a melting pot of cultures and species, each corridor echoing with the polyglot languages of the galaxy. The conference was held in a secluded wing of the station, heavily shielded to avoid surveillance. The room buzzed with representatives from various species, each having faced exploitation or witnessed atrocities against their kind. Eli's introduction was met with a mixture of admiration and scrutiny. His actions spoke volumes, but trust was a commodity as rare as the peace many sought. The discussions were intense and fruitful. Strategies were devised not just to protect but to proactively liberate those still trapped in the clutches of the galactic trade markets. Eli shared his technical schematics and the biological insights he had gained from his time with Lisa, offering up his inventions for communal use. One of the more poignant moments came when a holographic representation of Lisa was brought into the conference, her image flickering slightly as she recounted her tale. Her message, transmitted across the stars, was clear and potent, reinforcing the urgency of their cause and the real, personal stakes involved. Motivated by Lisa's testament, the group formed a coalition, the Celestial Alliance, dedicated to the preservation and protection of interstellar biodiversity. Eli was appointed as one of the lead strategists, tasked with engineering safe havens and creating more protective satellites like those around Zephyr. The days that followed were a blur of activity. Eli worked alongside engineers and biologists, crafting devices that could be adapted to various planetary environments and ecosystems. Each device was a beacon of hope, a potential lifesaver for species yet unseen and unrecorded. Amidst this whirlwind of activity, Eli's thoughts often drifted back to Lisa and the serene vistas of Zephyr. He wondered about the effectiveness of their efforts and about the Ariad's adaptation to their newfound autonomy. The beacon he had given Lisa remained silent, a quiet promise hanging in the balance between the stars. As Eli watched another satellite launch into the dark tapestry above, his heart was heavy yet hopeful. The challenges were immense, the risks ever-present, but the potential to spark change across the galaxy fueled his resolve. With each launch, he felt a step closer to a universe where no being would have to endure the captivity Lisa had suffered, a universe where the freedom of one was the freedom of all. In the subsequent months, the Celestial Alliance grew in both influence and capability, becoming a beacon of resistance against the dark tide of interstellar exploitation. News of their efforts rippled across the cosmos, reaching distant worlds oppressed by the greed of intergalactic traders. These communities, inspired by the success on Zephyr, began to reach out, their pleas for help painting a grim tableau of the universe's underbelly. Eli, amidst this expanding network, found himself at the helm of increasingly complex operations. Each mission required a delicate balance of stealth, diplomacy, and sometimes outright defiance of galactic laws skewed in favor of powerful conglomerates. The Nightingale was retrofitted with state-of-the-art cloaking technology and an array of countermeasures that made it not just a vessel of travel, but a harbinger of freedom. His next mission took him to the water-covered planet of Hydrus, where sentient aquatic beings known as the Aquarii were being captured and sold as exotic pets or, worse, harvested for their bioluminescent properties. The intelligence from the ground indicated a major trade hub hidden beneath the planet's vast oceans, a hub that operated in the murky depths away from prying eyes. Collaborating with a local resistance group, Eli dived into the icy waters of Hydrus aboard a submersible adapted from the Nightingale's escape pods. The cold was biting, the pressure immense, but the determination to end the suffering of the Aquarii propelled him deeper into the abyss. Navigating through underwater canyons and past colossal sea creatures, Eli's team located the hub, a sprawling complex anchored to the seabed, its lights a sinister glow in the dark waters. The operation to dismantle the hub was fraught with danger, the traders were well armed, and the environment was unforgiving. The ensuing battle was a chaotic blend of strategy and survival. Explosions sent shockwaves through the water, stunning friend and foe alike. Eli and his team deployed a series of electromagnetic pulses, disabling the hub's defenses and freeing dozens of Aquarii trapped in translucent cages. Amid the turmoil, Eli's eyes were everywhere, his every move calculated to ensure as many lives were saved as possible. With the hub neutralized, the team escorted the freed Aquarii to a series of safe havens, areas shielded by technology similar to that which protected Zephyr. The Aquarii, in their luminescent thankfulness, promised to join the Celestial Alliance, adding their unique abilities to the Coalition's resources. As Eli returned to the surface, the sun broke over the horizon of Hydrus, casting long, shimmering reflections across the waves. The battle underwater had changed him, each mission etched more lines of worry and resolve onto his face, a testament to the weight of his crusade. Back on the Nightingale, Eli received updates from various other operations across the galaxy. Each message brought news of small victories and significant challenges. The network was holding, growing stronger with each successful mission, but the forces arrayed against them were formidable, their resources seemingly limitless. Despite the odds, Eli's resolve never wavered. With each freed species, with each ally gained, he saw the flicker of hope in the darkness grow brighter. The Celestial Alliance was no longer just a group of rebels. It was a symbol of the collective will of the galaxy's diverse beings to reclaim their rights and their homes from those who saw them only as objects of profit. In his quarters, Eli kept a hologram of Lisa active, a constant reminder of why he started this journey. Her image, fluttering wings and all, served as a beacon of inspiration, pushing him to continue despite the exhaustion and the endless battle ahead. The challenges were immense, the journey perpetual, but for Eli and the Celestial Alliance, the fight for freedom was the only path forward, a path paved with the stars of countless worlds yearning for liberation. The Celestial Alliance's growing influence began to attract the attention of more than just those oppressed by the galactic trade syndicates. It also caught the eye of several governmental entities. These governments, whose economies often benefited indirectly from the trade in exotic species, were not inclined to see the Alliance's activities go unchecked. Eli found himself navigating not only the physical dangers of his missions but also a complex web of political intrigue and diplomacy. On one occasion, Eli was summoned to a secret meeting on the neutral planet of Veldon, a world known for its sprawling diplomatic quarters and a labyrinth of bureaucratic red tape. The invitation came from an alliance of smaller planetary governments seeking to mediate a resolution between the Celestial Alliance and the more powerful trade coalitions. Eli, cautious but aware of the potential for a broader coalition, agreed to the meeting. Accompanied by a small, trusted team, he landed on Veldon under the guise of a diplomatic envoy. The planet was a stark contrast to the remote, rugged worlds he usually operated on. Its cities were sleek and polished, with towering structures of glass and steel that reflected the bright twin suns in the sky. The meeting was held in a discreet location, a lush conservatory that housed species of flora from across the galaxy, a testament to Veldon's commitment to preserving biodiversity. Here, Eli met representatives from the unified sectors, a coalition of planets that had grown weary of the corruption and greed that the galactic trade syndicates brought. The discussions were tense, with demands and accusations flying more freely than the diplomatic niceties that usually cushioned such meetings. Eli listened more than he spoke, gauging the room with a measured eye. He knew the unified sectors needed something from him just as much as he needed their influence to sway the larger government bodies. "We recognize the legitimacy of your cause," one diplomat began, her voice smooth, trained to calm stormy waters. "However, the methods of the Celestial Alliance, raids, sabotage, outright attacks on trade facilities, are causing instability. We seek a ceasefire, an agreement to move these matters from the shadows into the light of open debate." Eli's response was measured. "Our actions might seem drastic, but they are a response to the drastic suffering inflicted upon countless beings. We aim to shift the balance, not to sow chaos. If the unified sectors are truly committed to change, let them stand with us, not against us." The negotiations stretched over several hours, each side dancing a delicate ballet of give and take. In the end, a tentative agreement was reached. The unified sectors would back a motion to bring the plight of trafficked species to the Central Galactic Council, giving the issue the visibility it desperately needed. In return, the Celestial Alliance would moderate its direct actions, focusing on diplomacy and sanctioned interventions. Leaving the meeting, Eli felt a mix of triumph and trepidation. The agreement was a step forward, yet the path to its fulfillment was clouded with potential pitfalls. The political arena was as treacherous as any pirate-infested asteroid belt, and he knew that the real work was just beginning. Upon his return to the Nightingale, a new message awaited him. It was from Lisa, using the beacon he had given her. Her message was a mix of updates and a subtle reminder of why their fight mattered. She spoke of Zephyr's continued progress, of young sprites now learning about the stars not as places of danger, but as homes of friends and allies. This personal reminder of his initial mission revitalized Eli. It reinforced his belief that despite the political maneuvering and the battles yet to come, each step they took was a step toward a universe where freedom was not just an ideal but a reality for all its diverse inhabitants. His resolve hardened, Eli set course for the next challenge, ready to navigate the intricate dance of diplomacy and direct action, knowing each move brought them closer to the vision that had started with one small sprite's desire for freedom. As the Celestial Alliance's strategies began to take effect, the galaxy watched with bated breath. Eli's maneuvers in the shadows and in the courts gradually shifted the balance of power. The public revelations about the illicit dealings of the summit's delegates sparked widespread outrage and led to numerous investigations. Galactic opinion, once indifferent, now seemed to tilt in favor of the principles the Celestial Alliance stood for. The alliances forged by the summit on Tarnus began to fracture under the pressure. Several key factions, concerned about their reputations and swayed by the shifting public sentiment, withdrew their support. This created an opening that Eli and the Celestial Alliance exploited to the fullest, initiating diplomatic dialogues with these factions, offering them a chance to join a new coalition, one focused on sustainable and ethical interspecies relations. Eli's leadership during this critical phase was both innovative and inspiring. He managed to weave together a fragile tapestry of former foes and new allies into a cohesive force. This new coalition worked on drafting and enforcing stringent regulations to protect sentient species across various systems, pushing back against the darkness that had once seemed impenetrable. On Zephyr, Lisa and her tribe celebrated their newfound security and autonomy. The protective satellites continued to shield them, and their skies remained free from the threat of capture. Lisa, now revered as a symbol of resilience and freedom, led her people in a grand festival that marked their official entry into the Celestial Alliance. Their joyous songs and dances, a vibrant testament to their culture and spirit, were broadcasted across the galaxy, inspiring countless others. Eli, watching the celebration from afar, felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The years of struggle, the risks, and sacrifices had led to this moment. A moment when fear gave way to hope, and oppression gave way to liberation. But the battle was far from over. He knew that maintaining peace and freedom required constant vigilance and renewal of efforts. In the final days of his campaign, Eli decided to visit Zephyr once more. His arrival was met with jubilation. Lisa greeted him not just as a hero but as a dear friend. Together, they stood looking at the horizon, where the sky met the endless expanse of Zephyr's seas, their hearts filled with peace. "We've changed the course of history, Lisa," Eli said, his voice tinged with both pride and humility. "We did it together," Lisa replied, her voice a melodious chirp that resonated with the wind. "And together, we'll keep the skies and stars safe for everyone." As night fell, Eli and Lisa joined the celebration, their spirits as light as the breezes that swept through Zephyr's fields. The music and laughter echoed into the night, a sound that carried far beyond the planet, resonating through the hearts of all those touched by their efforts. Eli knew his work was not done. There were more worlds to aid, more beings to free. But as he looked around at the faces of those who now had a future full of hope, he allowed himself to savor the victory, to enjoy the peace they had all fought so hard to achieve. Under the starlit sky of Zephyr, surrounded by friends and allies, Eli felt a deep, enduring connection to the galaxy and its countless inhabitants. The night was alive with possibilities, and the future, once a distant dream, now felt within their grasp. With renewed resolve and the support of the Celestial Alliance, Eli was ready to face whatever challenges came next, guided by the stars and the bonds that united them all.